Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the ever merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord, Creator, Sustainer, the bringer of life and death, the provider for all of the creation. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafi khalqillahi. And may Allah raise the rank of and grant peace to the most noble of the creation of Allah, Nabiyyina Muhammadin, our Prophet Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Likewise, that of his family and companions, all of them in entirety. We thank Allah Ta'ala for bringing us together here in one of his houses, Masjid al-Tawheed, the city of Stone Mountain, Georgia, on this afternoon of the 21st day of Sha'ban in the year 1437. We thank Allah Ta'ala as He has enabled us and given us success in coming together to review some of the amazing words of His upright and honorable Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is our third session in studying one of His statements. Our third session in studying one of his very brief statements from Jawami'i Kalimihi, from the miraculously concise words that he spoke with of revelation that contain vast, broad sciences and benefits. In this third session, we hope to look at, from the narration of Abdullah ibn Abbaas, اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس. Take advantage of 5 things before 5 things occur. Shababaka qabla haramik. Your youth before your old age. And we've discussed that. Wasihhataka qabla saqamik. And your good health before your illness comes. And we've discussed that in our last session. Waghinaka qabla faqrik. And your wealth before your poverty. The time when you have access to wealth, before a time comes when you don't have that and you are poor. وَفَرَاغَكَ قَبْلَ شُغُلِكَ. And your free time, before times come that you are busy and occupied in. وَحَيَاتَكَ قَبْلَ مَوْتِكَ. And your life, take advantage of your life before your death. In this session, we'd like to talk about wealth. We'd like to talk about the reality of wealth, what it's used for, the reality of it being a blessing from Allah Ta'ala. And we'll mention firstly the statement of our scholar, Al-Allama, Al-Faqih, Al-Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih Al-Uthaymeen. He said regarding this phrase, وَغِنَاكَ قَبْلَ فَقَرِكَ. And take advantage of your your wealth, before a time of poverty comes to you. He said, وَفِي الْغِنَى رَاحَةٌ وَفَرَاغٌ. And along with wealth comes rest and relaxation, or ease in your affairs, and free time. The person has money, he can take vacations, he can relax and so on, when he has wealth saved up. فَإِذَا افْتَقَرَ الْإِنسَانُ. When a person becomes poor, اشتغل بطلب العيش لنفسه ولعال. He becomes occupied by chasing after provisions for himself and for his family. Right? So, one of the blessings of wealth is that it provides you with one of the things we've already discussed, and that is free time. And free time and good health, you could even connect it to that. That with wealth comes the possibility of eating good, solid, wholesome foods, the best of the foods, and also having the best kinds of medicine available when needed, so as to protect one's good health. So it connects to what we've previously discussed about 2 ni'mas that people have been tricked and deluded regarding from our young men who are here. What are those 2 ni'mas that come in the hadith that begins with ni'matani? There are 2 ni'mas. مَغْبُونٌ فِيهِمَا كَثِيرٌ مِنَ النَّاسِ. That many people are lost out on, are deluded by. Good health and free time. Barakallahu feek. May Allah bless you and your family. So then, wealth actually enables us to attain both of those. Wealth enables us to have free time, and wealth enables us, by the permission of Allah, to have good health as well. And so it branches off from the earlier discussions. So then we need to review a few matters from what we've already talked about in terms of recognizing and becoming grateful for the blessings that we've already talked about, as this is connected to a number of the things that we've talked about previously in a number of texts. The first one I'll reconnect you to, or remind myself of and remind you of, that is the hadith of the 7 under the shade of Allah that has preceded. And in that, who can tell me why that hadith was mentioned, connected to what point of discussion previously? Who remembers? Naam, akhi. The young man raised to worship Allah. He's from those who will attain the shade of Allah on the day when there shall be no shade except His shade. So a young man raised in the worship of Allah. Barakallahu feek. So that was about your shabab, your youth, before your old age comes. In the hadith of the 7, which I read to you, and only focused on that one point, what is the point that's going to connect us today to wealth? Naam, akhi. Barakallahu feek. One of the 7 is the one who spends so much, or let's say so secretly, so privately, that his left hand doesn't know how much his right hand has spent. Meaning from his own self, he even hides the reality of how much he gives and how much kindness he extends. رَجُلٌ تَصَدَّقَ أَخْفَى حَتَّى لَا تَعْلَمَ شِمَالُهُ مَا تُنْفِقُ يَمِينُهُ. A man who gives so much and he hides it so that his left hand doesn't even know what his right hand has given. Barakallahu feekum. Another point of review with a hadith that's been mentioned previously, that connected to a point that we've discussed previously and connects to today's point, is the hadith collected by Imam al-Tirmidhi in his Jami', from the narration of Abu Barza al-Aslami, and also from the narration of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Anyone remember that narration? Al-Imam al-Tirmidhi brings it from these 2 companions. Something about feet, Ya Hussein? The feet of the son of Adam on the day of judgment with Allah do not move from their places. لا تزول قدما عبد يوم القيامة. 2 feet of the servant do not move from their places. They don't budge, right, on the day of judgment. حتى يسأل عن, until he's asked about some matters, some specific matters. Which one of the matters connected to a previous point? Who's got it over here? Naam? His lifetime and how he spent it, that's one of them. Right? And also, today, his wealth. Where did he get it from? And how did he spend it? Naam? So he'll be asked about umrihi fima afnahu, his lifespan, what he spent it on. He'll be asked about ilmihi fima amil, his knowledge and what he did of action, what he did, or fima fa'al, what he did with the action, with the knowledge that he had. Wa an malihi min ayna iktasabahu, and about his wealth, where did he get it from? Wa fima anfaqa, and where did he spend it? Wa an jismihi fima ablahu, and on his, he'll be asked about what? His body, and what he used it up for. Of course, that's connected to as-sihha, right? The good health. That's also from the bounties of Allah Ta'ala. To recognize wealth as a bounty, a blessing, a minnah, a gift from Allah Ta'ala, means that we recognize Allah Ta'ala as the mun'im, as the muhsin, as the one who bestowed and has given us this thing, and then the one who deserves to be thanked for all of these matters. And as mentioned, is it that we say a lot of alhamdulillah and that we mention the blessings, and that's sufficient for us to be grateful servants, that we say, I am so grateful that Allah has blessed me with this wealth, or I am so grateful that Allah has given me this good health, and you praise Allah with your tongue and you mention Him in good and you attribute the blessing to Him. Is this thankfulness? There's my question. Thank you. It's part of it. Is thankfulness complete with this only? No. How do we complete thankfulness? How do we fulfill gratitude to Allah Ta'ala? Let me ask my man here. Good answer though. Intentions. All right. So let me ask you, what's your name? Moosaa? Great name. Barakallahu feek. Moosaa. So if a person has beautiful, pure intentions with his wealth, right? And he has good intentions. He wants to go to the homeless people and buy them alcohol, to be kind to them, because they want alcohol. When he asks them, what do you want? They say, buy us alcohol. So he goes, he wants to be kind to them, and he wants to attract them to Islam, so he wants to give them what they want. And he has a beautiful intention. His heart is full of love for Allah. And so he says, I'm going to go to these homeless people and bring them some alcohol. And they'll appreciate that from me. And then I'll invite them to come to the masjid and to come to Islam and everything. What do you think, Moosaa? That's haram. But it's a good intention. The point is here, he's being grateful with his intention. Does Allah accept this from him? No. Allah Ta'ala does not accept this from him. What does Allah accept? Things that have two conditions, right? They are pure from their source of the drive behind it, the intention behind it. They are done for His sake only, with no showing off and no flaw in the intention. And also, what is it, Moosaa, that they have to be as well? Not just pure, but in accordance to the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you said the book and the sunnah, yes. In accordance to the legislation of Allah. So not only inwardly pure, but outwardly in conformity to the legislation of Allah Ta'ala. So back to our question here. We want to fulfill gratitude. We speak on our tongues with words of praise. We attribute the blessing. We say, this wealth is not from my work. Rather, I have no quwwah and no hawl. I have no power, no abilities to earn anything on my own. But Allah Ta'ala has provided this with me. And he speaks well of his Lord, and he speaks with gratitude upon his tongue. We said this is gratitude. But then there are some people who speak like this, and they are ingrates. How is that? They speak with the best speech of thana, of praise and thanks. And you may hear their speech and assess them to be people with good, solid hearts. But they are kuffar with Allah. Kuffar al-ni'am. People who are ingrates as it relates to the blessings of Allah. Why? What happened to them? Their speech is so good. Because of the iman. Be more specific. Let's say let me add to the equation here. He speaks with words of gratitude, and let's say his heart is full of love of Allah, without hypocrisy. He doesn't have hypocrisy. He's not doing it to attract the people's attention. He honestly, earnestly believes that Allah has given him these things, and he honestly, earnestly believes that Allah deserves praise and thanks. So he earnestly and honestly speaks with this praise. So let's take out of the issue nifaq. It's not hypocrisy that has ruined him. But what's ruined him? Sharif. Well, there's a hypothetical situation. If Allah withheld from him, he wouldn't be thankful. That's a possibility. But I mean, let's speak with real situations that have occurred. Naam, akhi. That's what destroys most of the people who say off their tongues that these blessings are from Allah, and they thank Allah with their tongues, but they fail to use the blessing for what is pleasing to Allah Ta'ala. So then he takes his money, and what does he do? Like the example I gave Moosaa, he spends it on something impermissible. He buys things of falsehood. He buys things of impermissible, through impermissible transactions, or things that are impermissible to own. Right? He has this speech upon his tongue, but he brings into his house a satellite dish and he puts it there with all the channels for his family, with the wealth that Allah Ta'ala blessed him to have. Is he thankful for the wealth? His speech may be beautiful, but is he thankful in action? It's not about speech, it's about action. That's the proof that the speech is correct, is that the action validates it. So he takes the wealth and he spends it upon what Allah Ta'ala is pleased with. That's what our talk is about today. That's what our reminder is about today. The blessing of wealth and taking advantage of it before we don't have access to it anymore. As the provisions, as it said, الرزق مقسوم, that provisions have already been set out. As you know, you were in the stomach of your mother, and the angel blew the soul into the stomach of your mother, and your provisions, your lifespan, your deeds, your place in the hereafter, shaqiyun am sa'id, whether you're a person of eternal bliss or a person of eternal misery, it was all written upon you at that time in the wombs of your mothers. So a rizq is maqsoom. Your provisions have already been laid out. They have already been set for you. Wal harisu mahrum. And the person who is diligent and devout, meaning overly haris, overly vigilant to gain his provisions, he's the one who gets deprived, as the people have said. We'll look at some narrations which would support this concept in a moment, insha'Allah ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala reminds us that wealth, while of course every person from his fitrah, every person from his natural disposition, he's inclined towards wealth. You don't really have to tell a person, go after wealth and go try to get some money. Generally, you have to advise people to not focus on that so much. A reminder comes to us for our respected and honored sisters that they work as hard as they can to make sure that they help to facilitate the atmosphere of learning, and that they don't mistakenly engage in a conversation with someone they haven't seen in a while, in a place where the people are trying to listen and be reminded about matters of their religion. May Allah Ta'ala give them success and give them patience with each other. Allah Ta'ala reminds us that this wealth is a danger, that this wealth is a trial, that this wealth is something to be cautioned against. Allah Ta'ala has warned us that wealth is a fitna. In many verses in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala has said, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةً. And know that your children and your wealth and your children, in that order, they are a fitna. They are a trial and a tribulation. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. And verily Allah, He has for you a reward that is great. That's the 28th verse of Surah Al-Anfal. And there are many verses that mention the fitna of wealth. I'd like to draw your attention to the mention in this verse of children and wealth together, and highlight a connection here that may not be so obvious to you. That in fact, children are from the generality of wealth, and they're not really two separate things. That's based on the hadith of Amr ibn Shu'aib an abihi an jaddihi, which is a Hasan chain according to the scholars of hadith. Who's this Amr ibn Shu'aib, and who's his father and his grandfather? Anyone know? Kind of an important one for those of you who love hadith and you love chains. Amr ibn Shu'aib an abihi an jaddihi. Do you know this chain, anyone? Remember this. Amr ibn Shu'aib ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. He's who? Amr ibn Shu'aib ibn Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, the companion radiyallahu anhu. So when he says an abi, he means Amr ibn Shu'aib. Amr narrates from Shu'aib, his father. An jaddihi, an jaddi Shu'aib, who is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhu. He said that a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam once. فَقَالَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, O Messenger of Allah, إِنَّ لِي مَالًا وَوَلَدًا. I have wealth and I have children. وَإِنَّ وَالِدِي يَجْتَاجُ مَالِي. And my father takes my wealth. He takes from my wealth. قال, so the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to him, أنت ومالك لوالدك. You and your wealth are the property of your father. إن أولادكم من أطيب كسبكم. Your children are from the very best of your provisions, of your earnings. فَكُلُوا مِنْ كَسْبِ أَوْلَادِكُمْ. So eat from the earnings of your children. Look at how the Prophet ﷺ turned this man from complaining about his father to realizing that his own children are a source of income for him. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam, a master teacher and a master advisor. May Allah Ta'ala allow us to benefit from his guidance. The point here in our discussion, though, is what? That the children are from the provisions, from the kasb, from your earnings. So they enter into the generality of your amwal. So when Allah Ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةً, or أَنَّمَا وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا أَوْلَادُكُمْ, أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةً, know that your wealth and your children, they are a fitna, children being from the generality of one's mal. As the Prophet ﷺ said, أَنْتَ وَمَالُكَ لِوَالِدِكَ. You and your wealth belong to your father. And how often is it the case that lots of wealth and lots of children together becomes the thing that keeps people from accepting Islam. It becomes the thing that stops people from practicing Islam when they are raised in it or attributed to it or from a land where Islam is predominant. How often it is the case that it's that wealth and that large number of children that keep people away from the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala. Think about the hadith of Zayd ibn Thabit radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that was collected by Imam Ibn Majah and Imam Ahmad. He said the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Man kanat ad-dunya hammuhu, man kanat ad-dunya hammahu." Whoever has the dunya as his goal or as his obsession, as his concern, فَرَّقَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرَهُ. Allah will split up his affair upon him. Allah will divide his affair up upon him, meaning make it difficult for him and not easy. وَجَعَلَ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. And will make his poverty right there in front of his own eyes. وَلَمْ يَأْتِهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَا كُتِبَ لَهُ. And nothing of the dunya will come to him anyway, except what has been written for him. This brings us back to what? وَالْحَرِيسُ مَحْرُومٌ. And the one who's vigilant, meaning overly vigilant about securing his provisions, he's deprived. Because nothing will come to him, no matter how much he pushes himself, nothing will come to him except what Allah Ta'ala has written for him in the first place. Then the opposite of that, the people who go overboard in focusing on wealth and the accumulation of wealth to the point where it is their hem, it's their himma, it's their objective, it's their goal, it's their concern in this life, then what? Their affairs become scattered, poverty right in front of their face, and dunya only comes to them that was already written anyway. The other side of the issue, وَمَنْ كَانَتِ الْآخِرَةُ نِيَّتَهُ. And whoever makes the hereafter his intention, جَمَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ أَمْرَهُ. Allah brings together for him his affair. Allah brings it all together for him. وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. And makes his richness, his wealth, present within his heart. وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. The dunya comes to him anyway, despite whatever would happen. The dunya comes to him anyway, despite him not being so concerned for it. Allahu Akbar. So here the effect of not being so concerned for wealth and being concerned for the hereafter. And remember, that's the definition of what? That hijacked term that the Sufis take all the time. What is it? Zuhud. That you are focused on the hereafter really, and not so focused on this life. Allahumma sallam. So then what? A person makes the hereafter his goal, his intention. Allah brings together his dunya for him. And he'll have richness, he'll have wealth, he'll have wealth within his heart. The kind that he will enjoy, the kind that is wholesome, the kind that gives a person satisfaction, the kind that allows a person to truly enjoy the stay that he has in this life and those around him and the things around him. He's content and he's satisfied. And you see this with many people whose means are limited. They are, by definition, lower class or middle class or lower middle class or impoverished. Yet you find them, just content, absolutely content, at ease, peaceful within themselves. True richness in the heart. And we ask Allah Ta'ala for richness in our hearts. So we need to, since this is the case, wealth has been distributed already, and it's been set to be distributed in the future, then our goal needs to be for the hereafter. And then whatever Allah tries us with of this wealth, we have to be prepared for it. We have to recognize it as a fitna, and we have to look to survive through that trial. If you're told a fitna is coming for you, don't you brace yourself? Don't you prepare? Don't you understand the gravity of a trial for your deen? One that destroys other people, one that destroys many all around you. You brace yourself for it. You prepare for it. And you do that by fulfilling all of the orders of Allah Ta'ala as it relates to that wealth. The zakat, the sadaqah, giving in charity, making sure that the earnings are from halal sources with halal transactions, through trade that is halal with halal items, without harming people, without deceiving anyone, without being dishonest, without trickery on forms or lies on shipping papers or anything. All of it pure, honest, transparent, wholesome earnings. With all of this, then you pass the test and the trial of wealth. Without this, then you fail to whatever degree you fail, that you fall into some of these matters. And I warn myself, and I warn all of my brothers and all of my sisters against what happens when a person's vigilance overtakes him, a person's vigilance about wealth overtakes him. In a very prolific example set by our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a very scary situation, a very scary scenario is drawn for those who seek to be admonished by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He spoke of carnage and destruction, a wolf, two wolves being set loose upon a pack of sheep, and these two wolves are hungry. And in one narration, the shepherd is gone. So when two wolves are let loose, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma dhi'bani ja'i'ani," no two hungry wolves, ursila fi ghanamin, that are let loose upon a pack of sheep, bi'afsada laha min hirs al-mar'i, that would not be more corrupt, more destructive than a man being vigilant about what? Ala al-mali wa sharafi li dinihi. For a man to be vigilant, overly concerned for his wealth and for his status, and how that would corrupt his deen, how that would tear apart and destroy his religion. Subhanallah. How many sheep are mentioned in the hadith? An unmentioned number. How many wolves? Two. Seeking wealth, seeking status. Two dangers that will rip apart a community of sheep, that will rip apart the unlimited number of aspects of your deen. It won't corrupt your salat and your fasting only. It will corrupt everything. How many sheep are left? After the wolves are left there with no shepherd and they're hungry, does the wolf take one sheep and just go? They're going to wreak havoc and destroy everything. And you could possibly say nothing would be left. Just carnage, just blood and destruction. This is the reality of the person who seeks after money. He seeks after money. That's one of the two wolves. The other one is what? The one who seeks after status. Be warned. Because being vigilant about these matters will destroy you. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam guided us to being vigilant about certain things. And he taught us that being vigilant about certain matters is from the strength of our iman. What are those things? They're found in the hadith of the strong believer. What's that hadith? Who knows it? MashaAllah. المؤمن القوي خير وأحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف. أحسنت. The strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. Continue. وفي كل خير. And in both of them there's good. What's the good in both of them? Do you know? The weak believer is good? Because he might pray. He's a believer. This is not a comparison between a believer and a disbeliever. This is a comparison between a believer who's got strength in his iman and a believer in Allah who's got weakness in his iman. Both are believers. That's their khayr. Aywa. He still believes in Allah. Ahsant. So now, this hadith, when you're not paying attention, you may think it changes subject and there's just some random admonition going on at the end of this, as some ahadith to the untrained eye may seem like that. There is a virtue being mentioned, and now there's some general advice. Pay attention because the connection is very strong. Ihris. Remember the rest of the hadith? Ihris, 4 things. Ihris ala ma yanfa'uk. Here's the hirs. Be vigilant. Guard over something. Watch over it and be very careful about it. What is it? Ala ma yanfa'uk. About the things that benefit you. Is it the wealth and the status? No. Because you being vigilant about that would do what? Would destroy your deen. Like how wolves would tear into a pack of sheep. So be vigilant about al-ilm al-shar'i. Learning Islamic knowledge. Be vigilant about hudur al-masjid. About attending the masjid. Be vigilant about al-akhlaq al-aliyah. About having good, high standard of character. Be vigilant about the correct aqeedah. Be vigilant about the manhaj of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Be vigilant about all the matters of your religion, your salat, your fasting, all of that. And وَلَا تَعْجَزْ. And don't be lazy. Don't lose opportunities. وَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Ahsant first. And you said it too, I just missed it. وَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. Seek the assistance of Allah, because the first issue is broad and it encompasses the whole religion. Be vigilant about every single thing that benefits you. Then since that is a lifelong duty, استعن بالله. Seek the assistance of Allah. وَلَا تَعْجَزْ. And don't be lazy. Don't miss opportunities. Don't fail to perform when you can perform. Then the 4th thing. ولكن قل قدر الله وما شاء فعل. If something befalls you, وإن أصابك شيء فلا تقل لو أني فعلت لكان كذا وكذا. When something befalls you, don't say, had I only done such and such, then what? This would have been the case, the if. لكن, however, rather, instead of that, say, قدر الله or قدر الله. Either one is acceptable from the hadith. This is the qadr of Allah, or Allah has made His qadr. وَمَا شَاءَ فَعَلْ. And He does whatever He chooses. فَإِنَّ لَوْ تَفْتَحُ. What does low do? When a person says, لَوْ فَعَلْتُ كَذَا. If I only did this, then that would have happened. What does it do? It opens up something. أيوة. تَفْتَحُ عَمَلَ الشَّيْطَانِ. This low opens up the work of Satan, Iblis, Shaitan, your enemy. طيب, the shahid here is you've been commanded to be vigilant about that which benefits you. And the connection to these 4 advices in the first part of the hadith should be clear to you now. You've been told there's a station held by strong believers. And it is that they are better and more beloved than weak believers. Then you would be curious at this stage. And the Sahaba were curious. And before they even needed to pose the question would be what? How do I attain that status of being a mu'min qawi? How do I become a strong believer? You're given 4 points of advice before you even need to ask the question. Subhanallah. So these 4 advices, how do you become a strong believer? The very first one is your hirs, is your vigilance about what benefits you. Mafhum al-mukhalafa. Turn it around. What's the opposite understanding from that? Right? La tahris عَلَى مَا يَضُرُّكَ. Don't be vigilant about what harms you. Right? All of this can be compared to another hadith of what? مِنْ حُسْنِ إِسْلَامِ الْمَرْءِ تَرْكُهُ مَا لَا يَعْنِيهِ. From the good Islam of a person is that he leaves alone things that don't concern him. The mafhum mukhalafa is مِنْ حُسْنِ إِسْلَامِ الْمَرْءِ اهتمامه بما يعنيه, is his obsession or his concern with the things that are of relevance to him, the things that benefit him. And that's the strength of his iman from the hadith of the strong believer. So the more a person embodies strength in iman and goes after it with his intentions and his actions, the more he is concerned with the matters that benefit him, and the less he's concerned with wealth and status. And Allah Ta'ala has said in that surah that was mentioned yesterday in explanation of the word ghaban, surah what? At-taghabun, the day of people being deluded and being in loss because of tricking themselves out of the reward with Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala says in 2 verses here, which we'll take a great amount of benefit from, insha'Allah Ta'ala, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. Verily, your wealth and your children are fitna. Wallahu indahu ajrun azim. And Allah has with him reward that is great, similar to the verse from Al-Anfal. Fattaqullaha. Look what comes right after it. Fattaqullaha. So fear Allah. If you hope for that ajr azim, if you hope for that great reward with Allah Ta'ala after being warned about the fitna of wealth and children, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, then fear Allah to the best of your ability. Fear Allah as much as you are able. Fear Allah here, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, means what? Fulfill the orders of Allah, stay far away from the prohibitions of Allah, with inner sincerity and outward conformity. All of that is taqwa, seeking to protect yourself from the punishment of Allah Ta'ala and earn the favor of Allah by His permission. وَاسْمَعُوا وَأَطِيعُوا, hear, listen, and obey. وَأَنْفِقُوا خَيْرًا, here we have guidance specific to wealth. The wealth is a fitna, so fear Allah as much as you're able. Listen and obey and spend in a good way. وَأَنْفِقُوا خَيْرًا, and spend in a good way. لِأَنفُسِكُمْ, for the benefit of your own selves. Spend from that wealth, from the benefit of your own selves. What would the fruit be of you detaching yourself from this wealth and being easy in giving it to those who need it and in spending it in routes that are pleasing to Allah? The end of the verse here, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ, and whoever is saved from self-conceit, then they are the people who are successful. The wealth, when a person has a lot of wealth, what does the shaitan whisper to him as it relates to others who don't have the wealth? You are better than these people. Allah favored you with more. He might even attribute the blessing to Allah. Allah favored you and didn't favor them because you're more beloved to Allah. And these people are nothing. These people are worthless. And you find that it's easy for a rich person to become arrogant and look down on people. And this is why Allah Ta'ala has legislated for His servants that which purifies their wealth, that which purifies their souls and their wealth in the giving of the zakat. And giving zakat is not done in arrogance. It's not done by throwing money on some people and say, here, take this, you bum, or take this and try to find a job or something like that. Rather, zakat is given in an honorable way. It's an act of worship. It's not done with arrogance and looking down on people. And thus I warn myself and all of my brothers to avoid using these charitable organizations and these systems, these charities that say we'll take your zakat and we'll give it to poor people. Look what's behind the legislation of zakat. It's the purification of your soul, that you're going to connect to people that you might be led to look down on, that you might be convinced by the shaitan that these people are beneath you. But you reach out to them and you make a connection with them and you deliver something to them some harvest from your farm or some wealth from your earnings or whatever the zakat is that you're paying, you deliver it to them with honor and nobility, not in a way that disgraces them in front of the people, but in a way that preserves their honor. And then this is something that cures what might come to the chest of a person who has wealth, of arrogance, of looking down on people. That arrogance would lead him to no good. And it is Allah Ta'ala who wants him to be purified for his benefit so that he can be a person of good actions and a person with a good heart. Subhanallah. Yesterday, or this morning, our Shaykh Farid Abdullah, Hafidhahullah, he mentioned this verse. And just as a question for you guys, those of you who attended this morning, he mentioned this verse in reference to something related to the issues of fasting. Does anyone remember it? The verse, what is it first of all? فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. What's this verse relevant to as it relates to the lessons of our Shaykh? Farid Abdullah. Naam, akhi in the back. Right, fasting has been prescribed for you. Bayyin. As it's been made an obligation on those before you. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, in order for you to attain piety. The question is, what's the connection to فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ, to the lessons on fasting? What point was it connected to specifically? Hussein. Feeding the poor if a person is terminally ill. The person being terminally ill is more worthy of your focus. He's terminally ill. So what about him and fasting? He can't fast. So is he sinful when he doesn't fast? No, because Allah orders us, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. So that Allah made a way for him to fulfill his duty in a secondary way, by doing something alternately. Now, by feeding a poor person, the person who's ill, extremely ill, in a way that he's not expected to recover from. Now, so you fear Allah to the best of your ability. Jazakum khairan. Back to wealth and being warned against wealth. Brothers, wealth is the fitna of this ummah. It's not only fitna, but it's the fitna that this ummah specifically is tried with. As mentioned by our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna likulli ummatin fitna. Every ummah has a fitna, meaning one that is specific to it, one that it's being tried with specifically. Wa inna fitnata ummati al-mal. And the trial of my ummah is wealth. The trial of my ummah is wealth. If this doesn't open your eyes to the seriousness and the danger of this trial, then what will? Subhanallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his daily supplications, he used to supplicate, seeking refuge with Allah Ta'ala from both poverty and wealth, which shows you an indication towards that middle path. When you seek refuge from poverty, it may be assumed that you want wealth. When you seek refuge from wealth, it may be assumed that you want to be poor and have nothing and be stripped of everything. But our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us that balance. From the dua that was narrated by Aisha radiyallahu anha, collected by the two Imams of Hadith, Bukhari and Muslim, in their Sahih authentic compilations, the dua that begins with what he used to say on a continual basis, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kasali wal-harami wal-ma'thami wal-maghrami wa min fitnat al-qabr. This dua that goes to when he said, wa min sharri fitnat al-ghina, and I seek refuge with you, O Allah, from the terrible trial of wealth, of affluence, having a lot of wealth. And right after that, وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ فِتْنَةِ الْفَقْرِ, and I seek refuge with you from the trial of poverty. So when we talk here about the danger of wealth and the fitna of wealth, we want to be clear. We're not saying give up all of your wealth and flee from all of it and let your family suffer. Let your children be impoverished and suffer, not having any food and not having any clothes because of your piety. Rather, take care of the rights of all of those under you, and that is the meaning of seeking refuge with Allah from al-faqr, from poverty, meaning that keeps us from the ability to provide for those under our care. Keeps us able to take care of them without being incapable. And as mentioned, that dua was collected by both Imams, and this is the wording of Al-Bukhari. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us about some people that they have a lot of wealth, and they don't understand the trial of the wealth, and they don't take care of the rights of the poor, and they don't show gratitude to Allah Ta'ala through their usage of their wealth. He said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى يُعْطِي الْعَبْدَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا مَا يُحِبُّ. If you see an individual, a servant that Allah Ta'ala has given from worldly things, what he loves, what he likes, what he craves, وَهُوَ مُقِيمٌ عَلَى مَعَاصِيهِ, whilst that individual is established, engaged in acts of disobedience, yet he is given and he is provided for. فَإِنَّمَا ذَلِكَ مِنْهُ اسْتِدْرَاجٌ. That is nothing but istidraj from him, from Allah. Istidraj means entrapment. It means to lure someone into a punishment. Do not think well of the disbelievers and their affluence and their wealth, because they enter into this generality, that this is just istidraj. It's just more proofs being built up against them. We ask Allah Ta'ala for safety. Another angle through which wealth is a fitna, it is a trial, a very interesting angle, and you may not see it when you hear the verse, so pay attention. From Surah Al-Furqan, regarding the accusations of the disbelievers against our Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Allah Ta'ala defended him, saying, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا قَبَلَكَ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ إِلَّا إِنَّهُمْ لَيَأْكُلُونَ الطَّعَامَ وَيَمْشُونَ فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. And no messengers before you ever came, except that they surely ate food and they walked in the marketplace. وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. And we have made some of you to be fitna for others. Will you be patient? وَكَانَ رَبُّكَ بَصِيرًا. And your Lord is and has always been all-seeing. That's the 20th verse of Surah Al-Furqan. Where is the angle of fitna, of wealth being a fitna? It is from what was previously mentioned, from these accusations and these assumptions of the disbelievers. It's that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he should not be human, he should be an angel. And if he's human, then he should have an angel with him. And if he's going to be human, then he should have a Jannah, he should have gardens, so that he doesn't have to go out into the market and buy things to take care of himself. Meaning he should have all of his provisions given to him. So they said what? A prophet, a messenger from Allah, should be an angel. Okay, if he's not an angel, then he should be a rich man having every single thing. And Allah Ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضَكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. We have made some of you to be a trial to others. Will you be patient? The scholars of tafsir mention specifically here, the wealthy are a trial for the poor, and the poor are a trial for the wealthy. Why do they say that specifically when the ayat is general? And it's not restricted to this issue, but it's a very beautiful angle of tafsir. Because these people believed that honor and virtue with Allah means wealth. Yet, Allah Ta'ala has sent a messenger that had to go to the marketplace and buy food and was not provided for from every angle. Rather, he worked and he sought sustenance like the rest of the people. Allah Ta'ala has referred to that issue of being him from his qadr, kawni, from his decree that takes place within his creation, is that some of us are trials, fitna for others. The rich are a fitna for the poor, and the poor are a fitna for the rich. How are the rich a fitna for the poor? Who can explain that? How are rich people a trial and a tribulation for poor people? because they have more money, right? And so the poor person looks at them. What does he do? The one who fails the trial, what does he do? He says, why does he have that and why don't I have that? What's that called? Hasad, right? Jealousy, envy. He doesn't say, may Allah bless that man and his wealth. Rather, he says, I want that. Why does he have that and I don't have that? Right? So it's a trial. And this is so common. When you see something of this dunya, it glitters and it's attractive to you. And you say, how did he get that house? Where did this, his salary is not enough for that car. How did he get that car? New car too. Like that, you start thinking. First thing on your tongue needs to be a tabreek. You say, may Allah bless that thing. May Allah bless that house. May Allah bless that car. And don't busy yourself with how did somebody get something. Rather, it's the favor of Allah. He's the one who favors some of us over others with provisions. So if we don't pass that test, then the poor amongst us, we look at the rich with envy, with hasad, with jealousy. And we fail the trial of wealth even while we don't have wealth. We're failing the trial of wealth while others have it. We're deprived of the wealth in the first place, and then we're failing the test of the wealth that Allah has given it to them and not to us, and we fail that test too. Clear, evident loss. You're going to tell us how the poor people are fitna for rich people. Is that what you wanted to say? You had your hand up. Or maybe you had another idea for how the rich people are a fitna for poor people. Who can help me out? No? Okay, the arrogance that comes with wealth, and that causes him to despise and look down upon his brothers in Islam, saying what? Worthless and, very low people who don't deserve much. Yeah, what else? Tayyib, he may view himself as deserving what he has based on his own actions. Yeah? Ahsan. Okay, so zakat has been legislated. And for a rich man to take his earnings that he earned from his salary, that's specific to him, is given to him for the number of hours that he worked. He looks at this money and says, this is what I deserve based on my hourly rate, based on my salary and everything. He knows this is his earnings. He takes some of this and gives it to someone who did not earn it because he needs help. That's the system of zakat. Is that not a trial for a person? Of course, and many people don't pass that. And as easy as Islam is, subhanallah, 2.5% of one's earnings, correct me, 2.5% of one's earnings, correct me, that's wrong. 2.5? 2.5% is 2.5. 2.5% of one's earnings. That's wrong. Why is it wrong? Savings, excess. Not only savings that you have for 6 months or for a long time. Savings that you've had for a year untouched. Not only savings that you've had for a year, they have to be significant above an nisab. All of that, 2.5% of that. It never harmed anyone, and it only aids the people and brings joy to the believers. Subhanallah. Compare it to the oppressive, terribly oppressive system of 30% and 40% of people's earnings, whether they need it or not, whether they're sick and need medicine or not, take the money before they even get it in their hands. Oppression. And that money is being used in wars and in all kinds of terrible things. We ask Allah Ta'ala to allow us to realize what this does for us. Not that we stand outside and picket and demonstrate and things like that. But you recognize you are mazloom. Don't look past it. You're mazloom. You're oppressed financially when that much is taken from you without right and being used for all kinds of corrupt matters. You're oppressed. Raise your hands to Allah and enjoy this situation of being mazloom and recognize oppression for what it is. And look at the beauty of your religion comparatively. Wallahi, there's no time you compare any man-made system of law to the sharia that Allah sent down, except that the sharia shines from every angle. And the man-made laws, while they might look good from some angles, when you investigate them and compare the numbers and look into it really, you find they are flawed and they are corrupted, and they are without benefit, and they are failing in their implementation. Subhanallah. In a place where every people, all people, and all of their earnings, 30 or 40% of their wealth is taken from them, when 2.5% is enough to take care of the poor and the needy, why is such a place? Why are there still poor, homeless people, people without health care, people without basic needs and necessities? Because the system is corrupt. It's not the system of financial management legislated by the creator of the people. The people have turned away from the revelation sent by the creator of the people and have turned to themselves and their own intellects to devise systems of financial management for their countries and for their cities and so on. And it has led to their own financial ruin because they have turned away from the system set up to be in their interest. Allahu Akbar. I guess our time has gone on quite a long time. I'll bring your attention to one final point before we close here this evening. And that is something that's rather another subtle point that you may have read in the Quran a lot all of the time and not contemplated much about. And that's from the benefits of these kinds of gatherings, to bring to your attention things that you've read and haven't stopped on to really look at and contemplate over. The benefit of Muslims reminding each other in what is beneficial. The Prophet ﷺ had, during his lifetime, and he legislated for us after his lifetime, one time in the week when it is an obligation for an admonition to be given and to be heard by the people. One time in the week. Aside from that, every attendance is optional. Highly recommended, virtuous, but attendance to other matters are optional. What's that one? Obligatory attendance? Al-Jumu'ah. With that obligation, which is on everyone, all of the capable males, right? With that, the Prophet ﷺ used to admonish them with the very best of admonitions, using the book of Allah Ta'ala in his khutbah, sometimes like Surah Qaf, and other kinds of admonitions, heart-touching and very effective admonitions. And he would lead the salat of 2 rak'ahs, and he had, to the best of my knowledge, a variety of 3 consistent practices for the surahs he would choose. Anyone know these consistent practices of the Prophet ﷺ for Jumu'ah Salat? Al-A'la and Al-Ghashiyah. That's one. You have another one? Al-Jumu'ah first and Al-Munafiqun second. Barakallahu feek. The third one is the least known. My man here. Qamar. I don't know of Surah Al-Qamar being used for Jumu'ah. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't know of it. Like I said, I have, according to my knowledge, 3 sunnahs. Naam akhi. Qaf. I don't know of that. I know that for Salat al-Eid. Aywa. Or in the khutbah itself as well. I'm talking about the recitation in the formal prayer of 2 rak'at. Al-Ghashiyah in the second rak'at and the first rak'at. It's actually a combination of the first 2. Or a melding of the first 2. Take Surah Al-Jumu'ah in the first rak'at and put Al-Ghashiyah in the second rak'at. And you have your third sunnah mentioned in the Sahih compilation of Al-Imam Muslim. Tayyib. Let's look at one of them, and that is the longest of them. And the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us to have short speech in the khutbah and long salah. The longest of these combinations is Al-Jumu'ah and Al-Munafiqun. And I'd like to bring your attention to the ending of both of those surahs and the admonitions found in the ending of both of those surahs. Something that is shared between the 2 surahs. Near the end of both surahs, read them, you'll love this. There's the call, the Nida ar-Rahman li'ibadihi. Allah, the most merciful, calls upon his servants by their name, al-mu'mineen, or the people who believe. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, in Surah Al-Jumu'ah. إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ مِنْ يَوْمِ الْجُمُعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. O you who believe, when the call is made for Jumu'ah prayer, then rush to the remembrance of Allah. Does it mean run with your feet? No. إذا سمعتم الإقامة فأتوها وأنتم تمشون ولا تأتوها وأنتم تسعون. If you hear the Iqamah, go to it walking, don't go to it running. The meaning of al-sa'i here is al-jidd, being determined and going directly to something. فَاسْعَوْا إِلَى ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ, go in a determined way directly to the remembrance of Allah, meaning to the khutbah, right? وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعِ, abandon trade now. Leave off trade, financial. The financial matter here regarding our wealth, a fitna. How many people fail this trial? And they say, we're in the land of the kuffar, we don't hear the adhan, the shop, if it closes, the customers will be upset. And so a man is sitting in the shop during Salat al-Jumu'ah selling lottery tickets and cigarettes, thinking that that's what he has to do. Allah, some people are facing great trials to this wealth. May Allah Ta'ala guide them and aid them. وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. So abandon trade, and that's better for you. This being better here doesn't mean there's an option, as obedience is better than disobedience. Doesn't mean this one is better and they're both okay. But iman is better than kufr, and obedience is better than disobedience. It's better for you if you only but knew. Then look what Allah Ta'ala says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Then once the salah is finished, go out, spread about on earth. وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. Go after the bounties of Allah. That's the trade. Go back to your trade. وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. And mention Allah much, that you might be successful. Look at the next verse. وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً. And if they would see some kind of trade, meaning during Salat al-Jumu'ah, أَوْ لَهْوًا, or some falsehood, انفضوا إليها. They turn away and they leave you for it. وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا, and leave you standing there, giving the admonition. قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ. Say that which is with Allah is better than false play, idle play, and trade. وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. And Allah is the best of providers. That's the end of Salat or Surah Al-Jumu'ah. Then look at the next surah he would recite in the second rak'ah. Al-Munafiqun. On a regular basis he would read this surah as well in the second rak'ah, which also ends with 3 ayat, beginning with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O you who believe. What's the admonition? La tulhikum amwalukum wa la awladukum an dhikrillah. Do not allow your wealth nor your children to distract you away from the remembrance of Allah. Allahu Akbar. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ. And whoever does such, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. And they are the ones who are losers. Then, more instructions. Don't allow this wealth to be a distraction. Don't fail the test. Don't fail the trial. Rather, take advantage of your wealth before your poverty. وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Spend of what we have provided you. مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ. Before death reaches one of you. فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي لَوْلَا أَخَّرْتَنِي إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ. And he says, oh my Lord, if you could only allow me some respite, some more time. فَأَصَّدَّقَ. As-saddaqa means atasaddaq. So I'll give in charity. Like muzammil means mutazammil. Like muddathir means mutadathir, and so on. فَأَصَّدَّقْ فَأَتَصَدَّقْ. I'll give in charity. وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And I'll be from the people of righteousness. وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. And Allah does not delay the appointed term of any soul if its term comes. وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. And Allah is all informed of what you do. And that's the end of Surah Al-Munafiqun. In both surahs you have this reminder about financial matters, about wealth at the end, calling with a call to the believers to recognize the fitna, the trial of wealth, and to act accordingly. And to recognize the rights of Allah Ta'ala upon the wealth, the rights of His servants upon the wealth. And look at how in this last one that we just mentioned, there's a relationship to our hadith, a very strong relationship. And that is that the person will ask Allah, once his time is over, he'll ask Him for more time. He'll ask Him for respite. Let me go back. And if I go back, I'll give in charity. Right? What happened? And he did not take advantage of his 5 before his 5. He failed to take advantage. And when a person fails in this way, from the khasirin, may Allah save us, he begs Allah with a supplication, with a request that will not be given to him. That he gets more time so he can go back and spend. Take advantage of this wealth before this time reaches you. Before you are begging Allah for more time and you wish you would have spent it. You wish you would have been from the righteous people. Be now righteous people. I advise myself and all of you to be righteous. That we are righteous in our inner selves, in our intentions, in our interactions with our families, in our interactions with our communities, between ourselves and Allah Ta'ala, in the way we follow His Messenger, that we are sincere and devout in all of that, and that we are not people who are deluded by the glitter and the glamour of wealth, but rather people who realize that that is a trial. We take from it that which Allah makes easy for us in order to provide for our families and to provide some ease in this short journey that we have to our goal. And we ask Allah Ta'ala that when we are placed in our grave, it is that we are placed in our grave upon Iman and A'mal Salihat. This is what Allah Ta'ala has made easy for us on this afternoon. وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. And if there's an opportunity for a correction of an error that I made, please don't be shy. نعم. فيقول. Did I say فيقول? فيقول ربي لولا. بارك الله فيك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.